My mother persuaded my boyfriend to marry my sister, saying plainly, "She's stronger and better suited to you." Discovering this shattered me, leading me to move away and rebuild my life independently. Years later, when we reunited at a lavish party I hosted, their expressions turned ghostly pale upon seeing whom I had married. I never imagined those words coming from my own mother's mouth, "Mary's sweet." But Susan has always been the achiever, the one with genuine potential. You need someone who will propel you forward, not hold you back. They lingered menacingly, like a blade poised above my heart, as I stood frozen outside the kitchen door at my cousin's graduation party. My boyfriend of 3 years, John, had left to grab drinks, but his prolonged absence prompted me to find him, a decision I would deeply regret. Peering through a small crack in the door, I watched John's thoughtful, silent expression. He didn't defend me or dismiss her words, he merely stood holding our forgotten drinks, absorbing her remarks. "There's always been more chemistry between you two anyway," she continued gently, patting John's arm in a way that knotted my stomach painfully. "Susan has admired you for years, just waiting for the right moment." "I'm not sure, Mrs. Thompson," John hesitated, his uncertainty already a betrayal. "Mary and I have been together a long time." "And what's that amounted to?" my mother replied calmly, raising an eyebrow. "Susan just became a junior partner at her firm." "What's Mary doing with her art degree? Making coffee and sketches nobody buys." The harsh critique of my struggling art career stung deeply, but John's thoughtful nod devastated me completely. Quietly retreating, I maintained composure through the party, despite the storm raging within me. I should have confronted them immediately, ended things right there. Instead, I smiled and pretended I'd heard nothing. That was my first mistake. Initially, the shifts were subtle. John began mentioning Susan casually, praising her recent court victories or her fitness regimen. Each mention was a quiet wound, too slight to openly confront. Soon, there were cancelled dates, late nights at work, and a newfound interest in legal documentaries recommended by Susan. Eventually, I found texts about lunches they'd never mentioned to me. When confronted, John dismissed it easily. "Mary, she's your sister. It'd be strange if we weren't friendly," he rationalized smoothly, making me doubt myself. Family dinners became unbearable, their private smiles exchanged across the table piercing deeply. Alex, my best friend, saw it before I admitted it myself. "He's changed," she noted quietly after John again left early, claiming work obligations. "He doesn't look at you the way he used to." "Just a rough patch," I insisted, denying the painful truth growing within me. The undeniable truth came 2 months after the kitchen encounter. Visiting John unexpectedly to surprise him with art performance tickets, I still had a key. We discussed moving in together before things changed. The apartment was silent upon entry, but a trail of clothing led clearly toward the bedroom. Susan's blouse lay crumpled in the hallway, the partially open bedroom door eliminating any doubts. Susan's hair spread across John's chest as they lay tangled, oblivious to my arrival until the tickets slipped from my grasp. "Mary." John scrambled to cover himself, but Susan merely seemed irritated, not ashamed. I said, "Don't tell me it's not what it looks like." "I'm not blind." Susan sat up calmly, unfazed by exposure. "You would have found out eventually. Maybe it's better this way." Their calm acceptance was more hurtful than hysterical apologies could have been. This wasn't impulsive, it was carefully planned. "How long?" I demanded, though it hardly mattered. 2 months, John admitted, avoiding eye contact. "Since Mom talked to you," I concluded bitterly. Their shocked expressions confirmed I'd known more than they expected. I left quietly, without shouting or breaking things. Anger would come later. At that moment, I felt burning, terrible pain. Confronting my mother the next day was the final blow. We stood in her immaculate kitchen, the same place she'd dismantled my happiness. "Don't be so dramatic, Mary. Relationships end all the time," she remarked casually, arranging flowers as if discussing the weather. "Susan and John simply fit better together. Why would you do this to me?" My voice broke with emotion. "I'm your daughter." She sighed, finally looking at me directly. Susan always worked harder and aimed higher. She deserves someone ambitious. You're always the gentle, dreamy one. You'll find someone better suited to your personality. At that moment, I saw clearly, she'd never truly valued or understood me. In her eyes, I would always be second best, the disappointment choosing art over law, dreams over pragmatism. You're wrong about me, I said firmly. That night, I packed everything that fit into my car. Alex let me crash on her couch while I figured things out. But deep down, I knew a temporary fix wasn't enough. I needed a new city entirely, somewhere fresh without reminders of John or Susan. Are you sure this is the right move? Alex asked as we finished loading the last box. I'm not running away, I assured her, feeling oddly calm. I'm starting over. The next morning, I left a brief note for my mother, sister, and John. Watch me thrive. Armed with my art portfolio and enough savings to get by briefly, I drove to Philadelphia, a city where no one knew me or my painful story. Detroit welcomed me with pouring rain, fitting, I thought bitterly. I checked into a cheap motel room, then dove into searching for apartments and jobs. After a few exhausting days and multiple viewings, I found a small, shabby studio apartment. The rent ate up most of my remaining savings, setting an invisible deadline: find a job within the month or admit defeat and return home. I faced rejection after rejection until my final interview at Middle Investment Group. Upon arrival, they informed me the administrative role I'd applied for had been filled internally. But they offered me another opportunity, an assistant role with James Walker, one of their junior associates. James's workspace was a mess of files and takeout containers. Despite his obvious exhaustion, he had a sharp, direct presence. When he asked why I was interested in the job, I answered honestly: starting fresh means leaving the past behind. He hired me. The first few weeks were intense. James worked relentlessly, and I matched his pace, quickly learning the ropes. One night, finding me still at the office late, he asked with genuine surprise, "Why haven't you gone home yet?" "Because the job isn't finished," I responded simply. As weeks passed, our lunch breaks evolved into casual moments where work wasn't discussed. James respected my privacy, never pushing me for details about my past. Over time, our professional relationship deepened. James started to value my input on projects, making it clear my perspective genuinely mattered. I got so good at reading him, I usually knew what James needed before he even asked. Those late nights, which used to be filled with stressed-out silence, turned into easy teamwork, and sometimes even slipped into personal conversations. 4 months into my fresh start in Detroit, James asked me to grab dinner at an actual restaurant. No takeout, no paperwork. I figured it was to celebrate signing a big client. But after dessert, he slid a folder across the table. "I've been working on this for 2 years, he said as I flipped through the pages. It was a business plan for a boutique investment firm, focused on sustainable companies and first-generation entrepreneurs, the kind most big firms overlooked. I looked up, confused. "This is amazing, but why are you showing me?" He leaned in, eyes serious. "I'm leaving Middle next month to launch it. And I want you to come with me as operations manager. You get people. You know how to keep things running. I need that." I stared at him, heart pounding. "That's crazy, I barely know the investment world." "You know more than you think," he said. "And besides, you've got something more important: honesty, instinct. You can learn the technical stuff." "It's risky," I said, even though my gut was already shouting yes. He grinned. "Very risky. We might crash and burn. But I'd rather fail doing something that matters than succeed making rich folks a little richer." "When do we start?" I heard myself say. For the first time since leaving Detroit, it felt like I was finally moving towards something, not just running from it. Going from coworkers to business partners was easy. But the shift from friends to something more snuck up on us. Late nights discussing spreadsheets turned into talks about dreams and fears. 2 months after launching the firm, he kissed me, right outside our building, with snow falling around us. This could ruin everything we've built, I warned him one night. Or it could be the start of something better, he said, always the dreamer to my cautious realist. Our relationship didn't follow any normal playbook. Business meetings morphed into dates, work trips turned into weekend getaways. We kept it under wraps around clients. No way were we risking being seen as anything less than serious. Then James proposed in the most James way possible. We were sitting on my living room floor, both in sweatpants, going over quarterly numbers. Out of nowhere, he looked up from a spreadsheet and said, "Marry me. Be my partner in everything." "People will say it's too soon," I said, even though my heart already knew. "Let them talk," he smiled. 2 months later, we got married at the courthouse. Alex flew in from Boston, and James's brother, Robert, stood by his side. Some broken part of me, the part my mother, sister, and John had crushed, finally started to heal. This wasn't a man settling for second best. He chose me exactly as I was. This wasn't a man settling for second best. He chose me exactly as I was. We celebrated at our favorite Italian place. Signora Esther, the owner, decked out our table with flowers and popped a bottle of champagne she'd been saving. After the wedding glow faded, real life came rushing back. Walker Capital Partners was still just us, working out of our tiny apartment. The dining table became our boardroom. The living room was stacked with file cabinets we disguised as furniture. Client meetings happened in hotel lobbies and coffee shops, trying to look more successful than we really were. "Maybe we should take on some more traditional clients," I suggested gently after our 6th straight month of barely scraping by. "Just until we're on solid ground. If we compromise now, we'll lose what made us different in the first place," he said. We had our first big fight over money not long after. James wanted to dump our emergency fund into expanding the business. I wanted to save it for rent and groceries. The argument ended with slammed doors and bruised feelings, but we found a middle ground. Half for growth, half for security. That became our rhythm. His drive, my caution, balancing each other out. 6 months into marriage, we finally caught a break. An eco-friendly energy company needed partners who believed in their mission. And we were ready. After that first big client win, James spent weeks building a pitch that highlighted environmental impact and community benefits, not just returns. I stayed up late too, designing info packets that looked sharp but still felt personal. And it worked. The client picked us over bigger firms, and even better, they brought 3 other eco-conscious businesses with them. Finally, we had real momentum. From there, the business took off steady and strong. Pretty soon, our little apartment was packed with file boxes, printers, interns crashing on the couch, and conference calls happening behind the closed bedroom door. "All right, we need real office space," James admitted. "And maybe a home where I'm not fishing paper clips out of the cereal box." We found a small office and rented a slightly bigger apartment, one with an actual spare bedroom that didn't double as storage. Having a line between work and home helped us breathe again. The next 2 years were a blur of hard work. James built a name for himself as a guy you could trust in sustainable investments. I built the teams and systems that kept his big ideas running smooth. We made a hell of a team, his big picture vision, my attention to detail. The biggest surprise came one day, when a major investment group approached us about buying Walker Capital Partners. Their offer was generous. But they had one condition: James had to stay on as CEO of a new expanded division focused on ethical investments, and he'd get decision-making control. "I never pictured running something this big," James said later that night, standing in the kitchen of our new place, a cozy 3-bedroom we used to only dream about. "They didn't just buy a company," I reminded him. "They bought your vision, your reputation." Transitioning wasn't easy. James worked even longer hours setting up the new division, and I stepped up as Chief Operations Officer. Watching him command boardrooms with the same fire he'd once brought to late nights at our dining table made every sacrifice feel worth it. "We did it," he whispered to me during the champagne toast at his official appointment. I squeezed his hand and thought about how far we'd come. From that rainy day I drove into Detroit with nothing but a broken heart. Several years into his role as CEO, I had carved out my own spot too, no longer just the boss's wife. I built the systems that helped the company expand into new markets, and I had a seat at the executive table. Life outside work found a nice groove too. Sunday mornings with coffee and the paper, dinner parties with close friends. We hadn't started a family yet, both too focused on growing the business, but it had started slipping into late-night talks. I hardly thought about Boston anymore. Alex visited now and then, giving me friendly updates about people I barely remembered, but never mentioning my family. That chapter felt closed, and I was fine with that. At least, until one Monday morning. "You might want to see this," James said, sliding a magazine across the breakfast table. In the corner, a headline caught my eye: Thompson and Associates faces bankruptcy after failed expansion. My sister's law firm. The one she built with my ex-boyfriend, after he left his old firm to join her. I tried to act casual, but my stomach flipped. "I didn't know you kept tabs on Boston news," I said lightly. "I don't," James said, watching me carefully. "But Horizon's on our acquisition shortlist. Your ex is there now. And their legal team outsources to Thompson and Associates. I just wanted you to hear it from me before you heard it somewhere else." The article was brutal. Susan's attempt to take the firm national had flopped hard. Debt piling up, clients leaving. John, my ex, had apparently bailed on the firm and taken a big pay cut to join Horizon's compliance team. The irony wasn't lost on me. The better match my mom had pushed for was barely hanging on, while I was sitting in my sunny kitchen with a man who had chosen me without hesitation. "Does it change your plans with Horizon?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "That's up to you," James said. "Their green energy portfolio fits perfectly with our growth plans. But if it's gonna cause you any pain, I'll walk away." "Don't be silly," I said, squeezing his hand. "It's just business." 2 weeks later, the deal was done. Horizon kept its brand, but now operated under our umbrella. Technically, John was now one of our employees, though a few management layers kept it from being awkward. "We should throw a gala," James said one night while we looked over the quarterly results. "Celebrate the acquisition. Introduce Horizon's team to our company culture." It was a good idea. And little did I know, that gala would stir up even more unfinished business. "I think we should invite John Thompson and the Boston crew, including their legal reps," he said one afternoon. "Show them that what we're building here stretches beyond Detroit." I froze halfway to taking a sip of my tea. "You're saying, you want my sister and my ex-boyfriend at our gala?" I asked, not bothering to hide the disbelief in my voice. James set down his paperwork. "Mary, I had no idea that the Thompson in the documents was connected to you." He looked so genuinely confused that I realized something. I'd never actually told him the full story. He knew about my complicated family, sure, but only in broad strokes. Nothing about the betrayal, nothing about John and Susan. I'd kept it tucked away so well that he never connected the dots. That night, I finally told him everything: my mother's manipulation, Susan's betrayal, how it all played out. I braced myself for sympathy. But what I got was something different, James thinking it through carefully before speaking. "Maybe it's time they see who you really are," he said. "You've built something real, Mary." His words hit something deep inside me. I wanted them to see me, not for what I could have been in their eyes, but for the life I built without their approval. "We'll invite them," I decided. All of them. John, Susan, even my mother. The weeks leading up to the gala were a blur of planning. I threw myself into the details: a sustainable seafood menu, carbon-neutral transportation, recycled paper invites. Still, when I reviewed the final guest list and saw their names in black and white, a lot of old emotions came rushing back. Would my mother still see me as the disappointment? Would John regret his choices? James found me one night, sitting on the couch, staring at invitation mock-ups. "Second thoughts?" he asked. "Not about inviting them," I said. "Just wondering if I'm still chasing their approval without even realizing it." He sat down next to me, took my hands in his. That's only something you can answer, he said. But from where I'm sitting, you stopped needing anyone's approval the day you drove into Detroit with nothing but determination and talent. He kissed my forehead. Whatever happens, I'm right here with you. The next morning, I signed off on the final guest list with no hesitation. RSVPs started rolling in, business partners, investors, employees from Horizon. And then the one I'd been waiting for, John would be attending as Horizon's compliance officer, Susan coming as his wife. My mother sent a short, formal note confirming she'd be there too. Finding the right dress turned into more drama than I expected. It had to be the right message, strong, not flashy. After way too many shopping trips, I finally found it, an elegant coral gown that felt powerful without trying too hard. The hall looked amazing that night. Warm, sustainable lighting lit up the huge hall. Flowers decorated every table. The menu featured locally sourced dishes. It all reflected everything we stood for. James and I got there early to check final details. Nervous? He asked, adjusting his bow tie. Oddly, no, I said, realizing it was true. This is our world now. They're just visiting. As guests arrived, we stood near the entrance, greeting everyone. I wore my coral dress with a simple diamond pendant James had given me on our anniversary. My hair, once long like Susan's, was now cut into a sharp bob. I felt strong. Real. I spotted them the second they walked in, my mother first, in a polished blue dress, looking every inch the old-school matriarch. Susan and John followed close behind, their eyes scanning the room, unsure. I thought about walking over, but I stopped myself. Let them come to me. Eventually, their slow lap around the room brought them our way. James and I were chatting with the mayor about green energy initiatives when my mother spotted me. Her social smile faltered for just a second before she recovered. Susan's eyes widened in real shock. John just stared, trying to process what he was seeing. My mother reached me first, throwing her arms around me in a stage-perfect hug. You look absolutely stunning, darling, she said with bright, practiced warmth. Mother, I said, returning the air kiss with steady calm. And just like that, the night began. I'm glad you made it, I said, smiling as I turned to bring James into the introduction. This is my husband, James Walker. Co-founder of Walker Capital Partners. James Walker, Susan repeated, reaching out to shake his hand. Her eyes flickered with that old, calculating look. Always assessing. Some things never changed. Your reputation precedes you, she added. I've followed your firm's growth with a lot of interest. James just smiled, sliding his hand around to rest gently on the small of my back. All due respect, Mrs. Thompson, but our success has been a team effort. Mary's operational genius made my vision possible, he answered. The surprise in their eyes was subtle, but real. This wasn't the story they'd probably built in their heads, the poor broken girl rescued by a powerful man. No, this was something else, a partnership between equals. John Thompson, my ex, stepped forward stiffly. John Thompson. Compliance officer at Horizon. We're familiar, James said with a polite nod. Welcome to the family of companies. John's face changed right then. The realization hit him like a truck. You acquired Horizon? He asked. That's right, I said, steady and calm. Finalized last month. James is announcing it officially during his speech tonight. I didn't need to gloat, the situation said enough. The man who once threw me aside for someone better was now working for the company I helped build. And the sister who'd thought she won? Standing beside a man buried in the middle ranks. If you'll excuse us, James said politely, we need to continue welcoming our guests. Please enjoy the evening. As we moved away, I caught my mother watching me from across the room. Her face was hard to read, somewhere between calculation and genuine shock. The night unfolded like clockwork. Dinner was served. Awards were handed out. I even presented a few myself to team members I'd personally mentored. All the while, I felt their eyes on me, watching as executives sought my advice, as James spoke about our shared accomplishments. After dinner, James took the stage for his welcome speech. He spoke with passion about sustainable investments, about building businesses that stood for more than just making money. Then came the big announcement: Horizon was now part of our company, and John got a special, very awkward shout-out during the welcome. Later, while I was at the dessert table, my mother approached me, champagne in hand. "I always knew you'd make something of yourself," she said, like she was trying to rewrite history. "You did?" I asked lightly. I remember hearing different things growing up. She waved her hand dismissively. A mother has to push her children to be their best. Susan needed confidence. You needed motivation. What I needed was support, I said quietly. She lifted her glass, unbothered. "Well, I suppose I should thank James for seeing what I missed." I smiled, but it wasn't a soft one. "James didn't make my success, Mother. We built it together, because we treat each other as equals. That's the difference." For once, her polished smile slipped. Changing tactics, she leaned in a little. "Susan and John, they're having some difficulties. Maybe you could put in a good word for them. Family should help family, after all. Their performance will determine their future," I said. "Just like mine did." Before she could say anything else, Susan approached, John trailing behind her. "Your husband is impressive," Susan said. "You've done well for yourself." The words hung there, more insult than compliment, the clear suggestion that my success reflected his, not mine. "We've done well together," I corrected gently. "That's what real relationships are built on." Susan's face hardened. John couldn't even meet my eyes. There was a brittleness between them now, something strained, hollow. And standing there, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt sad for them. They got what they thought they wanted, and it wasn't enough. Hours later, after the last guest left and we got home, exhausted but happy, James and I sat at the kitchen counter, eating leftover dessert. "How do you feel?" he asked, studying me in the soft kitchen light. I thought about it for a second. "Lighter," I said finally. Like I put something heavy down that I didn't even realize I was carrying. "So not revenge after all," James said, grinning. "No," I said. The weirdest thing happened tonight. Standing there, watching them, I wasn't angry. I was grateful. Grateful? "If they hadn't betrayed me," I said, reaching for his hand across the counter, "I might never have left Boston. Never met you. Never built this life." James pulled me into a hug, his voice low in my ear. "Maybe that's the best kind of redemption," he said. "Not making them pay, but realizing they gave you your freedom." Later, as we climbed the stairs to bed, tired but peaceful, I realized something else. Tonight hadn't been about showing them what they lost. It had been about finding my own peace.